I fell in love with music in the church, like a lot of people. There was this group that used to come to my church, the Fleming Sisters, old school, like Southern Baptist group. The way they would perform, like the emotion that they would give and that it would evoke in you, I was just like, wow. To be able to do that is amazing. From there, I started performing music when I was in high school. I was part of a gospel rap group. We went around to different churches and performed and did retreats, and it gave me the opportunity to really express what was happening with me. I think there's an internal rhythm that we all have. I think there's a spirit that we all have inside that craves art. And that kind of is what brings us together, you know, if you have nothing else in common. So I'm J. Pope. Jasmine Pope is my government name. And yesterday I recorded my song, How Long, for an episode of Shaking Through. Yesterday we recorded one of our new songs. It is called How Long. Check, one. We have Dan Samuels on drums, Dan Sam. On percussion we have Gabe Pickus, Dan Wallace on saxophone. Andrew Freed, also known as Freed, on the bass. And Jake Kohlhas is our guitar player and, in my opinion, musical director.
I have an easier time if I just do.
People have their own ideas based on what he brings, and then he kind of shapes it into the song that we end up with.
When we were getting ready for this episode, we had to take into consideration the different type of ensemble. It's not a synth band. It's not a jangly pop band. It's definitely like a funk ensemble. And Dan had a completely different type of drum set than we ever really record. When we position the center microphone, typically what we do is we use a string to make sure that the rack tom and the floor tom are both equidistant from that center microphone. But Dan's kit had 3 toms. He had a rack tom and 2 floor toms. So we're gonna try to balance the center mic between this and that instead of this and this. We made it so the rack tom and the second floor tom were equidistant from that center microphone.
The center overhead was a lot further over than it normally is. So if you were to pan those overheads out 100%, you'd kind of hear that the snare leans off to one side and the kick leans off to one side. But because we pan them like 40% of the way to either side, they're just barely getting into the stereo field.
Combined back with their close mics and how those are panned, and then combined back with the room mics, that sort of steered the kick and the snare back up the center. This is really what we're gonna do, is we're gonna run through the song as you guys know it. It's not gonna be anywhere near a final recording. And so that's why we don't wanna get too crazy about headphone levels and stuff like that. Obviously, Jay, you need to be able to hear yourself so you don't blow your voice out. But why don't we go ahead and run through it?
We got this, we just got it.
Aside from being a musician for my regular 9 to 5, I am a case manager at a healthcare center in Baltimore, dealing specifically with people who are HIV positive. I've been doing that work for a while now, and I think that the way that we approach the disparities in healthcare is problematic. There are a lot of people with good intentions, but they don't look at the whole systematic issue. You have people on the ground level who are working every day to solve problems, but it can't be replicated on a larger level because of political things. It makes it difficult to do meaningful work. You need to have people from the community fix the problems. We need to be in positions where we can affect policy change, where we can affect programs, where we can affect things that are larger than just us. I continue to do that work because I think we need to have a voice at the table.
Sounds awesome. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, please.
A band like this, they're all about like being in it for the long haul. Starting a song, establishing a groove and like really never leaving it. Okay, so this is like a pre-chorus or something?
Sort of, yeah. Like a pre-chorus, and then it gets back to the chorus. Two verses and then chorus.
We have to sort of guarantee, as we're producing it, that it's gonna feel like it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I'm gonna say between drums, bass, and guitar, we need to come up with sort of like what defines a verse versus a chorus versus a bridge, right? To really push that through, you give the listener little clues. You know, we could make the bass change sound dramatically from part to part by like putting a really thick, heavy distortion on it and then having it go clean in the verses and then back to the big, thick, heavy distortion.
For the room mics on the drums, there's like just a normal balance for some of the sections, and then it gets turned up like 5 dB in some of the louder sections, and you feel this rise from the sides. You could say that this drum has like room dynamics, where it goes from no room to some room to a lot of room, and you use that as a lift.
We're trying to bring out those narrative qualities of the song by just making sure that each part had its own sort of personality, and those lifts and drops functioned as a way to tell a story. Okay, so a couple little things here. Okay, we're gonna need you probably farther away from these mics, because if we really try to compress these and get a real pumpy sound, we'll hear you.
I think particularly now, like with what's happening in politics, more people are becoming aware of what's always been going on in politics. It's just so blatantly visible and in your face now. At the same time, we don't have the discourse that we need to have face to face to talk about ideas and problems. I know someone who's a Trump supporter, and they're a great person. They organize clothing and food drives, and they do great work in the community. It was a struggle for me to be like, so you support someone who's racist. That is affecting my life. You support someone who may take away the rights of LGBTQ people. That's affecting my life. Can I still call you a friend? Those are the conversations that you have with yourself about people who have differing views when you take the time to know them. Once you forget the humanity in someone else is when you can start to do terrible things to them because you don't see them as a person. We have to like go out in the streets and talk to each other and recognize, you know, that we're people. And I think music is something that helps us do that.
That was good.
That was right, yeah.
That sucked. Scratch it, erase that.
With all of us. Kick her out. I'm pretty sure.
So after we were finished up with the basic, we decided to just hop straight into overdubbing guitars.
Again, we're trying to make dynamic shifts between parts so that the listener really knows things are progressing. I would be curious to hear the Supro as the chorus amp and like doubled, like 2 of them.
Okay.
So like, yeah, playing with stereo dynamics, where like the guitar is a single guitar up the middle, and then for lift, you get 2 of them out to the sides, you know, hard right and left, and separate takes, so you're getting like
A little bit of a chorus.
yeah, you're just getting 2 of them, you know.
Okay.
What do you think of that? Does that
Let's
sound?
try it.
So we'll go from the champ, which is tighter and like more compact and somewhat clean, to the Supro, which is like a little bit looser and like really, really gritty and can be really distorted. But they're a similarly sized amp, so the 2 of them complement each other really well usually. Both guitar amps are mic'd up with our Kohlhas 4038, and that went into the AML 1073. For certain parts of the sax, we just turned the mic a little bit to just kind of block out some of the direct signal. It just makes it sound a little bit roomier, thins it out ever so slightly.
Matt placed that 440 probably 4 or 5 feet away from him. You know, if you have the right amount of space, the instrument can sort of fill up the room, and then you just figure out where the mic goes in that acoustic space, and it should be all set to go. And that goes for any complex instrument.
Yeah, that worked.
That was great. It was fantastic. Do you want to come in and hear it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yep. Coming into this, Jasmine's part is really freeform. She's sort of like vamping right from the get-go.
From the black in your skin to the brown in your eyes. I'm not gonna change necessarily like the words, but I may change cadence, or I may play around with melody, stretch notes out, bend notes, things like that. From the black in your skin to the brown in your eyes. I'm just an emotional singer, and so it kind of depends on where I am, and that's how I'll react to the music. From the black in your skin to the brown in your eyes. When I wrote this song, what I had in mind was what's happening in Baltimore inner cities. You know, like, there are populations who have been suffering from legislation and things like that for a long time. Inaction is not gonna lead to change. It's gonna lead to the same thing. How long do you tolerate it? Not 1 minute, not 1 second. Not 1 minute, no. Not 1 second, no. Not 1 minute, no. Not 1 second, no. Word with the word came to me. The sweetness of a honeycomb tree. Oh.
Cool, we're still poking around with this, so I'll start you right before you come in singing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what this sounds like.
Got it.
Here we go.
Gravity shifts and she doesn't see the Hawaii.
The placement of different lines is so different than the way she did it in the basic, that you can hear her say a line, and then if you listen really close, hear her say it a couple seconds later on the scratch, which is a big problem, except that it makes me really excited for how to fix it. And so, like we feared, her voice is coming through at different times, and if we like throw on something kind of like trippy and psychedelic, that'll just sort of fit in, you know what I mean?
So we float like dandelions in the wind. What remains?
You put echoes and delays off of her voice going through reverbs and stuff, and you're never gonna be able to discern that extra little voice of hers far in the distance.
For the sung vocal, we used the AEA A440.
The 440 was designed to just bring out the crooner. It's a big, old ribbon mic. It's the type of thing that, like, Ella Fitzgerald or Billie Holiday sang into. One of the coolest dynamic shifts is the vocal effects and how that goes away and becomes tight when it switches from singing to rapping.
And it don't take whiskey to remember how quickly we passed the flags.
For the rap vocal, we had her sing into the Neumann U67, and that went into the Gate 61As, compressed by the LA2A.
So it goes from sounding sort of like elegant and timeless to being like in your face and a little bit distorted. Almost like reality dynamics.
Questioning the things we would have changed. What would we keep the same? My vote would be the lead.
There's tons of ways to make dynamic shifts. And honestly, I think the more of them that any producer or engineer verbalizes in their everyday practice, the more they become actual dynamics that you can harness and use. That was really strong.
Yeah, that's good. Come listen.
Yeah, come listen.
The percussion we mic'd up with a Neumann U67 as sort of a mono overhead, and then we used the A440 as a room mic.
He, in a lot of ways, had the hardest job of all because percussion is really so core to the basic feel of a song, but he had to put his percussion on at the end when all the icing on the cake was already there. It's a little bit off. Will it screw you up not to do the flams?
Gabe, I think the part that sounds best to me and that fits into the space that's there is the part where you're going
It's just completely different to record a song in the studio than it is to play it live. A groove band is so in the moment, they're dependent on the interaction of the personalities.
Nice,
Nice one. How's it going?
Nice, yeah.
Word, yeah, that was it, I think.
Yeah. Come on in and check this out.
Alright.
I think we might have everything we need.
Every time is a good time for people to know that there's an urgency in terms of some things that need to change. There's an urgency in being a good person and doing the right thing, like constantly. You know, we should constantly be analyzing and thinking about what's really happening. I'm happy that people who were previously inactive or not as active as they could have been are becoming active. And I appreciate the people who have been fighting the whole time.
In this day and age, we're all getting so isolated from each other. And music is a thing that has an uncanny power to bring people together. Part of me just sort of feels like it's gotta be creativity, it's gotta be self-expression that sort of pulls us out of these really kind of scary, divided times.
I think that for musicians, the action is to make music. Like for the artists, the action is to make art that's reflective of the landscape. And some good stuff is gonna come out of that. That'll be healing for the artists and for the people who partake.
Weathervane's Shaking Through series exists to support self-expression through the creative process of making and recording music. To download the multi-tracks recorded for this or any episode of Shaking Through, or to learn about Weathervane Music, the nonprofit that produces this series, you can follow the links on the screen or go to weathervanemusic.org.